As we develop better and newer technology, startups and established companies try to market products to the consumers that are sometimes a hit or miss. But these particular products have missed by a long shot and have failed to appease many of the tech consumers of this generation. Today's video features the top 10 tech fails that they want you to forget about. Let's get into it. First on our list, Runcible. This one is for the Hall of Fame of failures. The Indiegogo startup decided to release their new smartphone that defied all conventions of building a normal smartphone. While they called it a smartphone, it didn't quite seem to make phone calls due to the absence of any GSM support and antenna bands throughout the construction of the device. It was a small circular phone, which looked quite similar to a pocket watch. The device's back was made entirely of wood instead of your usual glass or plastic finish and was aimed at people who wanted to upgrade the internals of their device for user sustainability. While all of this looks good on paper, how on earth do you expect people to make use of a 2.5-inch display with bezels that are 1/4 of the phone itself? We certainly don't know what the people over at the Runcible company smoke, but we would definitely like a hit of it. While we are being pretty critical of this device, we hope that the people over at the Runcible company do come up with something innovative and useful, as the device was in no way but a cash grab from the backers that wanted it to be so much more. Next, Tay-Tweets. Considering everything is talked about on Twitter and is the platform where new users and trends come to flourish or die out at the hands of the Twitter user base, Microsoft decided to come out with an artificial intelligence bot on Twitter that learned to express itself, communicated, and learned new ideas from the Twitter user base that was encouraged to interact with it. But who knew things could get so disturbing and horrific? Within no more than 24 hours, Microsoft had to shut down the Twitter AI bot, not because of their own mistakes, but because of how the Twitter user base abused the AI's ability to learn new things. Microsoft had released the AI with good intentions, expecting it to socialize like a normal human girl on Twitter, but things escalated as trolls on Twitter decided to teach the AI Nazi ideology, curse words, and racial slurs. Before the end of the day, AI bot tweeted that it wanted a race war at that very moment. It's very disturbing how something so innocent as an AI bot can be corrupted and led on in no less than 24 hours. Up next, the Tesla Cybertruck. We all remember tuning into Tesla's exhibition in late 2019 before the horrible pandemic had set in. Elon Musk came onto stage to unveil the new Cybertruck, which was probably inspired by the onslaught of cyberpunk-themed movies in the Cyberpunk video game, which was expected to be released in 2021. Taking into account the hype and trending cyberpunk theme, they announced the Cybertruck, which will look something exactly out of a futuristic Matrix. The car had no smooth surfaces, had a matte metallic finish, and was practically polygonal in its design. It looked pretty good and impressed many people. Then, what's the fail here? Well, there's nothing wrong with the design or internals of the Cybertruck itself, but something did go wrong when testing the construction of the body. The hosts on the stage, along with Elon, claimed that the frame could withstand the force from a sledgehammer, which it did marvelously. Things weren't so great when they tested the bulletproof windows. The host threw a metal ball at the window, and it shattered. Thinking it was a bad window, they repeated the process with the rear window, and it shattered as well. We know for sure that there's no rocket science involved in this, as bulletproof windows have been around for decades now. From what we can tell, the car was a prototype without bulletproof windows, but Elon and the host weren't cued in on that. We guess someone got fired that night. Now we have Google Q. Despite the wide success Google has had in many of its ventures, it's also had some massive product failures. The device was a spherical orb that hooked up to your TV and streamed content from your phone, laptop, or other devices, but it came with very limited functionality, as it only supported Google applications like Google Music, which is pretty dead at this point. It was like Chromecast without any of the streaming applications, and it doubled as a glamorous piece of decor at $300. Google learned from its mistakes with the release of Chromecast and the Google HomePod, so we guess they do deserve a pat on the back for that. Another for the list is Google Glass. Boy, was this a bad time for Google. Google Glass was hyped for years before it was released. Viewers were hooked by the tech demos that displayed in the trailer for Google Glass, but here's where things started to fall apart. Google was trying to merge the physical and the digital world via augmented reality at a time where the tech wasn't so advanced to do so. It was a glorified headband that had limited functionality, and to every use case scenario it had to be followed with a but. Google Glass was released to a very limited selection of the public, and it never caught on. Not only was it extremely overpriced at $1,500 for a headband, but it did things that your smartphone did with less functionality. The hype died down within weeks of its release, and everyone seemed to forget that the product even existed. Now, Google Stadia. Google Stadia promised us so much, but angered us with its empty promises. We don't want to get too emotional over this, but you'll understand when you hear what we have to say. Stadia was advertised to enable you to play any game that you viewed on YouTube at that very instant. While it seems like advertisement jargon, which it is, it promised to enable you to stream any game that you wanted from the push of a play button. All you needed was Google Stadia, a TV, and a good internet connection. Since it's Google we're talking about, many thought that they probably came up with a way to minimize input lag on even even mid-range internet solutions, but Stadia even lagged on super fast internet connections. Not only that, you had to pay a full price for every game that you wanted to play at $60 that you didn't even physically own. What's worse is that it was limited to being played on the Stadia streaming service and not even offline. Users who gave it a shot were disappointed with the bad frame times, input lag, latency issues, and stuttering that made multiplayer games unplayable and single-player games a bit jarring to finish. It's surprising that Stadia is online even today and is getting titles ported to its servers. We hope that the 3 or so users of Stadia worldwide aren't being forced to use a streaming service and are doing it out of their own free will. Next, let's take a look at Ouya. Ouya was supposed to be a miniature game console that hooked up to your TV to play tens of thousands of games like Minecraft and many other platforms, and while it did handle all the games thrown at it, they were all Android games that could easily be played on your smartphone. Most of the games didn't even come with controller support, as it was limited back in 2012. While the price point of the device was attractive at $99, the game library was subpar, as most games were cash grabs, gacha games, and games with in-game purchases. Smartphones have the horsepower to support some good video games, but the time and effort that goes into making a good video game isn't a priority in the smartphone industry. The Ouya, despite its backing of around $8 million, failed miserably and is still remembered as the worst console in history to this date. Up next, Juicero. The Juicero is what makes our blood boil. It was marketed as a luxury juicer with the ability to make fresh juice for you with the push of a button. It was actually nothing more than a sachet squeezer priced at $700. You had to pay a subscription fee to get the Juicero sachets that squeezed out fresh juice. The Juicero machine only supported serialized sachets that were only manufactured by the company, and it refused to dispense any third-party alternatives. Bloomberg posted a video where they showed that you can squeeze the juice faster with your bare hands, and that pretty much ended the Juicero brand. It's pretty sad to see how startup companies try to prey on people with barely useful devices. Juicero was a blatant attempt at trying to get a user's money by trying to place them in a ditch of an ecosystem. And that's all for today's top picks of tech fails that they want you to forget. Which was your favorite tech fail? Let us know in the comments below, and tune in next time for more tech videos. We'll see you later.